Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third episode of In the Fifth with me, Simone. Today, we're talking to Mimi Das about twin flames, soulmates, ascension, and a bunch of really other interesting things. On this channel, we like to discuss anything connected to 5D consciousness and how we get to 5D consciousness, raising our vibration. We like to talk about food, community, energy, healing, and that kind of thing. If you're just joining us for the first time and you're watching this on YouTube, please go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. If you're watching us on Facebook, a thumbs up would be great as well. And feel free to connect with us in the comments. And without further ado, a little bit about Mimi. She's a poet. She's a holistic spiritual coach. She does advanced angelic healing as well as golden light healing. So it's going to be really interesting talking about all these fascinating topics today with you, Mimi. Thank you so much for joining us. Please go ahead and greet the viewers and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really wonderful to be here. About me, I'm born in India. Now I'm living in the United States. As you did mention, I am a poet, and a little bit about how my poem comes is I channel my poems, and that's how I write it. It's just a simple question that I ask, and then I go in a very trance mode, and the words just flow to me. So when I read my poem, sometimes I go like, did I write that? But yeah, I have written that, and that's how it came to me. I am a holistic spiritual coach and intuitive multidimensional healer. I use some of my EFT tapping modalities, writing modalities, and other healing. Photography is also a part of it. So I combine certain hobbies of mine and my healing practices, and then I create this coaching and my healing. And I do write about traumas, domestic violence, and social issues. Try to inspire people through my poem. And thank you for having me here.
Yeah,
it's really great to be here.
Joining. Thank you so much for joining. I have seen a couple of your poems on your Facebook group, and some I don't always understand them, I have to be honest. But often it does I do feel a sense of maybe resonance with a lot of even the stuff that I don't necessarily understand. I do find there to be an energetic kind of shift that happens when I do engage with your poetry. Thank you so much for sharing a bit about that. Before we dive into twin flames, and I want to dive into that early on because I am so excited to be talking about this topic because I've also been affected by it. I've had my journey of awakening kind of being triggered through my twin flame connection. So this is something that I don't talk about much on my platforms, and because of that, when the topic came up between you and I, for anybody interested, we studied together at the University of Metaphysics, and this topic popped up last week, and I knew that this had to be the next topic on this channel.
True.
But before we dive into that, I wanted to just ask a little bit about the domestic violence thing. How and why is that an important topic to you to write about?
True. Thank you for asking. And that's it's kind of part of my ascension, my journey too. So it's kind of like I'll probably take you through the story of my childhood and then how everything happened, and finally dive into twin flame. So bear with me, please. It will be a story. So I have, from my childhood, witnessed domestic violence between my parents, and it has been a part where even one day without seeing them fighting would be like, oh, nothing happened today. Life is not interesting, but it's a humor that we use to kind of shed away our fear, our traumas and everything. Just bring in a bit humor between me and my brother. It did affect me a lot growing up, seeing my parents, seeing a dysfunctional family. And in India, it's probably very common to have that. It's not seen and not talked about a lot in our country. But to be honest, even witnessing of that has been a very long term, has its effect, long-term effect for me. And I believe for others who don't find the platform to talk, and still it's not okay to talk about, because again, we're talking about people we love, we're talking about people who are still here, and it's not okay in many culture to really openly, publicly talk about it. I have been physically abused in my childhood by my parents, like beating, and it's a very common method, techniques used in India to, especially being a girl, a daughter, where a lot of things come up as, oh, they're born, but the dowry thing is affected, the marriage, they will, it's just kind of a loss, not seen as gain, whereas son on the other side will bring money when they marry, and all those, like they are seen to be the heir of the family, and all those cultural thing that goes on. So I have been abused in my childhood, and those are certain things that's really helped me, I would say, build, because that's a lesson that I had to learn. And I always, now I have healed, I have come through my spiritual journey, I have come through where I can see it as a lesson rather than as a trauma, and I have worked towards it. It took me a long time to shed my fear, to shed my anger, to shed my sorrows and everything, and really rise, like rising like a phoenix, as we say, like rise from all the childhood traumas that I have seen. So that's a very important part of me, and of my poem too. When I write, as you said, domestic violence, I have not directly been abused, but I have witnessed, and believe it or not, it really have a very long-term effect in you.
I can imagine. So I think something that we, in the beginning of an awakening or of a spiritual journey, something that we have to do is acknowledge those past traumas. Something that I really believe is that trauma is not something that is happening in this moment. Trauma is our inability to let go of what has happened.
Right. And it does take a lot of process too. And when you are determined to go through the process, that I believe is the hardest part. When you're really going through that, you're releasing everything. And when you're releasing things, what happens is, at the first, you have to go through the memories of it, and then you're releasing it. And that is painful. Believe it or not, that's
reliving
painful.
Those moments, right?
Yes.
So I'll just add a little thing onto that. Is just very briefly, when I came in contact with my twin flame, we'll get more deeply into twin flames later. I found that relationship triggering memories from 15 years ago, traumas that I had long forgotten. But all of a sudden, there were all these memories coming up of every little thing that gave me a sleepless night or any kind of difficulty during my high school and my middle school years. And right through my university and then into my adult years, everything was resurfacing at the same time. And I couldn't understand it at that time because I hadn't yet begun the spiritual journey of expanded consciousness per se.
Right.
But that was the beginning of my spiritual journey, was acknowledging and recognizing those traumas from before so that I could heal them and process them, accept them, love them, integrate them as part of my journey. and is part of what has brought me to the point of being able to journey down the path of spiritual awakening. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that path of healing, that path of moving through the trauma of the past?
Sure, yes, I would love to. So I knew that I was always very connected to the divine source. You can call it God, you can call them archangels, you can call them any name that you have, God, goddesses, deities, anything. I do call them divine source. I always felt that I was very strongly connected to them. And it started happening when all this childhood traumas and everything, I was living then. And when, for example, my dad would beat me, or my mom, anyone would beat me, and I would ask the divine to really get me something to lessen the pain. It felt like magically that I would get those things. And I have noticed as years pass that I have always been divinely guided to the right path, no matter what, no matter who. I have been in relationship, and there would be times where it would be like, I don't feel right in this relationship. And the thing that happened is I would listen to that. I was like, why is this thing, what is this telling me that why it's not right? I have been staying with this person for so long. And just listening to myself, my thoughts were like, oh, and it helped me. And I did listen more and more and more. When I saw the outcome, I started listening. When I was given things one at a time, I was like, oh, there's something that is happening when I ask. So why not just ask when I really need something?
We forget that we can ask for help, right?
Yes. And that happened. And then in my childhood, I used to sleepwalk. I used to walk at night, oblivious of anything. I would go straight to the worship room. Our house in India has a separate room for God where we have the statues and everything. And I would go there and I would chant. And I never knew about that unless my nanny would tell me that you did that the next day. She would go like, you know, you did that, and what happened? I was like, what are you talking about? And that happened a lot, where she was so scared that she would put chairs and tables in between the path where I would hit something and it will make a sound, and she will wake up and put me to bed. Strange enough, I would never hit those things, and I didn't even know that she puts obstacles there, and I would just easily go and sit in the same spot and meditate or chant. So those are some things that grew my interest, and I totally forgot once I totally forgot about it. Then in 2013, when I was pregnant, and I remembered this so well that 2 weeks before my to know the gender, the ultrasound, 2 weeks before ultrasound, I had this dream where I was visited by two angels. One baby angel and one was a bit older adult angel, I would call. And the angel was a boy, and the baby angel was a boy, and the older angel was a man too. Somehow it was a very masculine energy, and the baby reached out for my hand, asking me to come join him. And I was almost going to give my hand in my dream when I was like, why don't you come to me instead? And I so remember the baby looked at the older male angel, and then the male angel nodded, and then the baby angel had that stairs, and then he just walked to me. And I woke up, and I felt that if I would have gone, I probably would have not seen my child. It would have been a miscarriage or something. I literally pulled it, the energy of that, and it took a shape of a boy.
Wow.
And after 2 weeks, it was a boy.
Wow.
Always wanted a girl, everything, but I was so happy that moment when I learned it was a boy. And that was that first, the lightning thing that happens moment where you're like, okay,
Something's
I
happening
had
here.
something that was so powerful. I literally saw that I'm going to have a baby boy. What was that? Like, what was that?
And then the cogs start turning. Yes.
Right, and you're always like, okay, like it's not possible. Like, how did that happen? And then that bulb like just goes on, and you're like, there's something more to this. It's not just that. One thing happened after other, and I started seeing these dreams of all these divine form dreams and everything. And I was like, something is just going on inside me. I could feel it energy wise.
Yeah.
And then I decided in 2000, I think 15 or 16, I decided to go for an essential energy balancing by a friend I met in Facebook. She did Candace Campbell, and I did this energy balancing with her.
Was it the first time you'd done any kind of energy work?
Yes, that was my very first time, because before that, the experience that I was having, I didn't have any answer for that. And then I started reading books and everything, and then suddenly she pops up in my Facebook, and I don't even remember how I add these people. I just do. Anyways, so I asked her, and she goes like, yeah, sure, let's do that. And then I started that, and I went through a major energy shift. I could feel my energy and stuff happening inside. It was like something that you can feel a ball moving, something like it's just a gust of energy that was just flowing. And it was something different that, like, I can feel it as a physical being, like my energy, I could feel it very strongly. Yeah. And once that happened, and I got a lot of books and resources from people, from groups I am in, and I started reading one thing after the other. I got books on Abraham Hicks, and I got books from Dr. Brian Weiss, and these are books which was like so very powerful for my change, for my shift to happen. I was like really getting like I started the process. I could feel I'm in some kind of process then. Yeah. And that's how the shift kind of happened. Like one dream led to multiple dreams, and then led to the energy healing, and then the resources kind of came through books and then Facebook groups and all these different groups, and the articles and the discussion. And I got so engaged in those, like everything was just like, it was like time was just moving so fast. There was no limit to anything. There was no stop for anything. Yeah. And then this wonderful thing happened in 2016 that we are here to talk about, is meeting my twin flame. And at first I was like, okay, that's something weird that's going on. Anyway, so in 2016, when I was feeling this change and this energy balancing happened, one fine morning, as my regular day would go, I was walking in my office, and in a hallway, I meet this familiar face. I greet him. And when you greet each other, you look at their eyes, right, with a smile, and you greet each other. And this phenomenal thing happened where I was looking at this guy and was greeting him as a very normal office day would be like. You pass several people. I was like, oh, hi, how are you? And suddenly, as if everything, time stopped there for a few minutes. It was just like absolute out of the world spiritual experience that I would ever have. And it was so strong to just like, it moved everything. everything. I looked at his eyes, and I still remember, I felt my soul completely coming out from my heart up to a ceiling, and both of our soul hugging each other and kissing each other. It stayed there for a few seconds, maybe. I literally lost track of time, so I don't know. It felt like a few seconds. It could be just like entire lifetime that I felt there. And all my soul lifetimes, I probably felt in that 1 second. And we hugged each other. Our soul hugged each other. It was lifted up, and I could really see a thread attached to my heart. I was shaking. I was getting chills. And in a few seconds, my body had to pull my soul back. Otherwise, it would just simply collapse. It would just fall. There was no other thing. Like, it was shaking. I was literally I started shaking. It was that powerful. And I could feel the pain, the emotions of just like not being able to be together as a soul.
Wow.
I never had a feeling that my body or my human self would want to be together, but my soul was like so wanted to be together. It felt like
I miss you, and I don't know who you are as a person, but my soul knows.
Yeah, right. It felt like it was just one soul.
Yeah.
That's it. It
I've
felt
had
like
that
one
experience
soul.
as well with my twin flame as well. The connection.
And I was like, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, what was that? Like, that cannot be even possible. Like, I'm dreaming. It's a dreaming world I'm in. It's not even possible. But the next day, I see that person again, and we don't look at each other. And I was like, oh boy, we had that experience, and it was true. Anyways, that was so powerful, and it comes with so much emotion. I just didn't know why I'm crying for hours. For no reason, I was crying. I did not want to cry, nothing, but I was just crying. Incessantly, I was crying. I was sick for almost 6 to 8 months. I was having high temperature. It was like fever, cough, cold, something or the other would just go on and on and on. And I was
That's
like,
that
okay,
releasing of
is
density, raising of vibration rapidly,
right.
Part of the ascension process. Which
Exactly.
will come to
and
later.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I didn't know back then that these are the things that happen during ascension.
Yeah.
And I was like, something is going on which is not right. Why is my energy, like, who am I? I couldn't even recognize myself. I was like, if you see a madwoman, like walking street without an intention, nothing. Like, I was literally a zombie at that time. I had no goal. I had no mission. I just don't know what was going on with me. It was that life. Intense. And I just didn't know what to do with this whole new thing. Like, do I want to be with that person? And the answer would be like, no. Like, it was a straight no. I don't want to be physically with that person, but I know that I don't want to miss the experience that I had. I want to have it every single minute, every single day in my life. So fast forward a few months, 6 months to a year, I was able to get back in track, and I was able to learn a lot of things, and things would happen. When one thing happens after the other, information just flows to you in a magical way. I don't even know how suggested post had something about twin flame. I had no idea what twin flame is. People might think twin flame and soulmates are the same, but twin flame is two different souls from one same soul. Yes. So if my soul has a source soul, there are two souls that came out of that one soul, and that's your twin flame. That's how I understand it as well. Yeah, and soulmates are kind of bound with contract. You had something in your past life, in your karmic life, and you are just contracted with that soul. It's a different soul. Souls that you travel with from a different source. Yes, and it's and you have similar learning maybe, but it's not the same source soul. It's completely two different soul. Whereas twin flame is one source giving birth to two souls.
Yeah,
and it's same.
Yeah, the way that I understand it is the oversoul. That there are these huge oversouls, and
Right.
in order to have as many experiences as possible, the oversoul will fractalize itself and send parts of itself out as
Right.
individual expressions, right? But they're all part of the same source, and those individual expressions are twin flames. And that means there could be multiple twin flames as well.
Yeah. Exactly. And they're your mirror self.
Yes.
Like you'll have same experience, you'll have same, and they can be there just for the purpose of ascension. As simple as that. Yeah. They could be there to stay in the physical world with you as well, as your partner, as your spouse, as your friend, as your enemy, as your guide, as your mentor, as your coach, but they are there as your mirror self. Like you will hate something in them, and when you look back, it's something that you have to work on yourself. Yeah. It's a lesson that you have to, it's something that's hidden within you that they show to you. It's like your mirror when you see. And anyways, that happened, and I was like completely shattered for a few months. Few long months, to be honest. The other part of twin flame you can feel is the magnetic field that is created between both of you, two people. I have been in multiple occasions. I have been in the same room, restaurants, or even a crowded place, where by no way I would know that person would be there. He's probably there saying, but there's this magnetic pull that would separate every single person in that room or in the crowd. There would, as if like there's no one else, just two of you.
I had that experience when I met my twin flame for the first time as well.
I could feel
like a movie, right?
Like a movie.
When
exactly.
You talk about it, it almost feels cheesy. Like, promise I'm not being cheesy. This is really what happened. This is really what it feels like.
Right. And it exactly, if you have two different magnets and you bring them close, and it's like those two magnets would just stick to each other, it's the exact same feeling you will have. However distant you are in the crowd, however distant you are in the restaurant or wherever, you will know that person is there. Yeah. And you'll feel a real line going through. I've seen the line, like literally a path forming, and you can feel like you can just walk in that one, and it's just two of you and no one else exists in the room. It's so powerful.
I know.
And it's just beautiful.
I try to stay away for a while because of that mirror impact. It was triggering so much of my unhealed trauma. Every time when we were together, it would be like this magnetic pull, and everything was exactly the way it should be. And then when we would part, I would start to feel the trauma resurfacing, and I was so confused for so long because I wasn't spiritual at all at that time. Why every time I'm around this person and I leave them do I feel so terrible? Why? What is happening in this relationship that's triggering so much of the past? And this went on for 2 years, of discomfort, and that eventually plunged me into my depression, into my dark nights of the soul, because it got to the point where it was like, it's full up now. All of that trauma is right behind this little thin, tiny veil that's hiding it, and that magnetism before kind of not connecting anymore, disconnecting from that person, was like you try so hard to not be in the space, but you can't help it. It just pulls. There's just this pull that just keeps bringing you back to the same place, to the same space, into each other's lives, constantly through whatever means. And then eventually that cutoff happened, and the veil was lifted and all the trauma just came flowing out at the same time. It was so hard. It was the hardest thing I've ever been through.
Right.
Was a twin flame
For
connection,
me,
yeah.
really, I did not have to cut through anything. I just flew with it. I just like was there flowing with it. I felt this immense bubble force of love within me that just suddenly rose. And I wasn't able to explain that love. It was just there for every single person. It was not just for that person. It was for every single being I would meet. And I just was scared to get inside that love energy. I was like, is it for that person? Am I going to what is going, I had a family. I have my husband, I have my child. And I'm like, okay, how am I going to explain this? And I don't know the future with this person. I cannot feel it. I know that. I know my energy. I know it's not going to happen. Why do I have this immense love for this person? And that love was not a physical love. That was complete divine spiritual love. I just decided to write that love. I just went in, and the more I went in, I just felt love for everyone. The more I thought about the experience, the more my heart just expanded. It just kept expanding and expanding. The sorrows came in, the emotions came in, and I just cried. I said, I cried one day for 6 hours. I cried for 4 hours. I cried for 10 hours. I cried at night, literally without, like a baby crying, wailing. And I just let that go. And I felt like it was that forced or shut energy or emotions that I had from my childhood. I just cried it off. Literally, I just kept crying and crying. And then my body, of course, with all the sickness and everything, that was different. But I just fell into that love. I did not want to go away from that love because I could feel that love. The energy of that love was something that was so defined, is so pure. It did not want to destroy any family. It did not want to destroy anything. It just gave me more and more and more love that I wanted or that I was seeking. And I started loving every single person. People who would hate me, people who would talk bad about me, I just gave back my love that I got from that. And that's how. And when I ask myself, why did I have if I don't have to be with that person? Again, this is the present now. I don't know about my future, but for now, if I don't have to be with that person, why? And the answer, again, with my channel messages that I get, it's like the experience, the ascension that you have to go through. You have asked for it and it's given to you. Ask and it's given. And I was like, okay, what would I learn? Why am I away from him? Would that be all the question that I asked was I was answered. I was given the answer every single moment. So I'm not sad or I'm not in pain at all to see that person with someone else, to not being with that person, because my physical self do not even want that, to be with that person, because I'm already spiritually so tightly connected with that person. I know why he was there for, the purpose of his being there at that point, the love that he was able to give me, the spiritual experience. That was just it was an answer to my question. The question I have asked always, is any of these real? Things are real, and things happen to me every single, from my childhood to now. Everything is real. Now I don't have that question anymore. I have different question that I'm getting answers for. But that was a different experience, and that led to my ascension. That led to the love and light that I preach now, or I teach people now about love and light, about forgiving everyone, about being grateful, about asking question to yourself, the question that is love what you are saying love? Is it true love, or is it a possession that you are thinking could be love? A friend of mine was having a real bad time, and that person goes like, oh, love hurts. I was like, is that true love? The memories that that person gave you, is that love, or wanting to be with that person is love? Because wanting to be with that person is ego, is possession. If you have found your twin flame, nothing is ego anymore. It's pure love. And once you
Mine
can
had to
feel
cut through the ego before I could get to the pure love. There was a lot of ego to cut through.
and once you get the pure love, you will not want to, you would be very lucky if you are with that person, but you are again very lucky to have just that experience. And that experience, the love that I feel now within me, is enough for everything. Like,
That's so
like even
beautiful.
talking about that, my heart chakra, my heart just expands so much. I don't want like future. I don't know. Now I am very happy just where I am now.
That's so beautiful, Mimi. My experience was a little different than that because I was in a deep state of unconscious behavior or living. So that twin flame connection came to cut through all of those layers of perception and came to bring all of the past to the surface in order for it to be healed, so more layers of perception could be released. And then once I started kind of coming out on the other side of that depression, I then started opening up to all the mystical, wonderful experiences. And I, of course, there were experiences happening with my twin flame, but I didn't understand them at that time. I just called them cosmic. That was how I described them to my friends. Like, I don't know what's happening, but it feels cosmic. Like you mentioned, there's no other person in the room.
It does feel cosmic.
Yeah. And then the experiences with universal love started to come through maybe a month into me starting to really feel a little lighter, as I started kind of integrating and accepting the past and learning to love the past. And then was this expansive love that holds space for everything, right? For the negative as well. And that love that could see why all the terrible things were necessary for me.
Right.
And then also the love that was able to hold the person that we view as the worst on the planet. That love was holding space for somebody who does the worst things to other people. You know, that universal love that does not discriminate, that does not need your twin flame in your life, that does not need any other person to affirm who you are as a being, as an individual. It just allows the experience of everybody and for everybody to kind of be where they are and be where they need to be. And if it's not with you, that's okay too. But it took a lot of digging to get to that point.
I think the important part of my process and journey is to learn that good and bad is just perception.
That's a hard one. I don't talk about that a lot because I know that it's a really touchy subject for many people who are maybe not at the point of seeing things from that broadened perspective.
Right. And that's why I said it's a process, and no one, for a person who's just learning and just there would not be under, but it's a process. It took me many years to know what I know now and what I talk about. And once you grow, I was very scared of darkness, not in a physical sense. I was scared about the concept of negative energy, because you read so much about negative energy and people talk so much about negative ghosts, spirits, and all these. And I was so scared. Recently, I was taken to a place called nothingness, and I saw that the source that we think is a light is really not light. It's just no color at all. And what is light, and those different layers, when you once you reach there, it's it's very different what we think is good and bad, what we think is people doing good or people versus people doing bad, because people doing bad are there to teach us very important lesson. We don't realize it now. If there was no war, we wouldn't know why it's so important to have peace at the first place,
It's
what
a very
it does.
polarized planet, right?
Right? So you have to know, is it good from our perspective? No. Again, it's a talk of perspective and the two sides of the same coin. It's not good or bad. Nothing is good or bad. It's experience. And if we could see it as experience, then there would be only learning, not blaming or judging.
Yes. I have a YouTube video that I put up maybe a year and a half ago that I have not made public, and it's about this. I put it up with the intention to share it, and maybe I had it public for a short while, but soon after I made it private because I realized what a this kind of information in the wrong hands could be twisted and used in a way that maybe it strays away from its meaning, right? So for a while I found a lot of peace in that experience as well, of void, of nothingness, of coming outside of polarity, and then being able to see the good from the bad without judgment,
Right.
without needing to define or put a label onto it. But I think if you do not have that expanded perspective, that people could use that information the way that maybe some use the love and light thing these days, to kind of hands-off approach. Are you hands-off because you are so far transcended genuinely, or are you hands off because you're using love and light as an excuse to not engage?
Right.
So it's the
True.
same thing. Are you seeing everything as not good or bad because you are so far transcended? Or are you saying things are not good or bad for your advantage to act in whichever way you wish? Because when you are so far transcended beyond that dual perspective, your actions will naturally be in alignment with the highest good of all involved. But if you are not transcended beyond that duality, and you are using it from an egoic perspective, you are going to cause harm for yourself and for others. And I'm so glad that you're bringing this up in conversation, because it's a topic that I've never spoken about on my Instagram. I don't talk about it at all because of the risk of you need to really define, and as much as it's defineless, you need to give that perspective of what causes more harm, because here in 3D we experience pain, we experience difficulty and suffering. And
3D, it's a very important thing that you just use 3D, and 3D is third dimension for people who are watching this. And now we are in fifth dimension. And a lot of people ask me this question: do we die if we have to go from third dimension to fifth dimension? No.
yeah,
You die is when
when ego
caterpillar a caterpillar turns into a butterfly. That's how you die. That's all it is. If you see yourself as a caterpillar in third dimension, where you're crawling and you have just very narrow outlook on what is ahead of you, and what is five dimension is you being a butterfly from a caterpillar, you being able to fly and reach your higher self, reach the higher perspective of yourself, where you weren't able to in the third dimension or third density. That's the difference of 3D and 5D. Yes, now we are in fifth dimension for a majority of people. We are still struggling with third dimension and fourth dimension.
So some people have moved up into that higher density,
Yes.
and into that expanded consciousness, but it's like in 3D you can have expanded consciousness, but as you're moving up into 5D, you gotta drop the 3D perspectives. You gotta drop the
Right.
3D weight. You cannot go up, and all it is a shifting of vibration of how fast energy is moving, which brings us into the process of ascension. So I'll just
Exactly.
briefly touch on that, and then I would love to hear your take on it. So as I went through my awakening experience, I was having incredible things happening, and some of those things were like my eyesight suddenly improving, like to the point where I didn't need my glasses. I would be studying, and suddenly the screen would get really blurry, and I wouldn't understand why. So one day I just dropped my glasses, and I could see, and I was like, this is strange. Put them up
Wow.
again, and I was like, blurry. I felt like Spider-Man, you know? Like, how is it that I can see better without my glasses? This is far too odd. I didn't understand anything at the time. I didn't know that it was all ascension based. My skin completely cleared up at the time. I became so sensitive to the energies around me, to the energies of trees and of the earth and of other people, and I could feel their pain. And one Christmas, we all sat together, and I was in a joyful, high vibrational state, but I could feel the suffering of every person at that table, and my heart was just filled with compassion, because you all have smiles on your faces, but there's so much suffering at this table, you know? And whether they acknowledge it or not, because often we don't even acknowledge our own suffering, right? And there were just these incredible things that, my memory, was shot. Like, I couldn't focus on anything. I was, at the time, I was studying education, Master of Education, and I just couldn't. I was, a week later, I went to my yoga studio, and they asked, how's your studying going? What did you study this week? And I was like, I couldn't remember a thing. I couldn't even remember titles. So I was just like, education. But I learned later that happens when your shift in perspective happens drastically. You start to drop all the old neural pathways. Those break away completely. So everything, or every way that you kind of had connected your reality before, was now crumbling. And what was happening was new neural pathways were forming, but they're not fully formed yet. And so you have this experience of, some people think they're going through Alzheimer's early or something, being really forgetful, and not being able to focus well. And the only thing I could focus on at the time was my awakening. And later I came across an article, it's a channeled article, by Tashira Takiren, channeling Archangel Ariel. And it explains the 12 stages of ascension, or light body activation, which is ascension. And the main thing being the dropping of density, and the dropping of energetic density, as well as the toxins in your body, which is why we experience detox symptoms when we are raising our vibration very quickly, or rising in ascension very quickly, or ascending very quickly. And that allows more light into the cells. And as more light comes into the cells, what happens is the cells are now having to process food as well as light as a source of energy. And so the frequency raises much more quickly, and hensing the raising of vibration, which can be done intentionally through meditation and food and other practices as well. But I saw every one of my symptoms in that article, and it laid the path so clearly. And I was like, oh, I also had the experience of wings. Now this is going to sound a little out there, but I'm going to share it briefly. Where I had this dream that I was surrounded by angels, and I had somebody next to me who felt like they were my partner. I didn't know them. They weren't incarnate or somebody that I knew in the physical, but I recognized them as a soul person, somebody that I journeyed with. And all the angels started sending this energy into my body, and I could feel it physically in my physical body on the bed. even after I woke up from the dream. And then in the dream, I felt the pain of wings pushing through my shoulder blades. And it was so uncomfortable but I knew that it was a good thing that was happening. And when I had a meditation 3 days later, I wasn't even deeply in meditation yet. I felt the same wings pushing through, like in an awakened state. And I was like, what is going on? And I'm like twisting and turning to see something like pushing through my skin. And after that, I started to kind of just play around with these wings, which eventually I learned were etheric wings and that they were very real. And then I saw that in the article that happens at the 9th stage of 12 of light body activation.
Wow.
I know. And just looking through that process was like you could see exactly where you were or where I was at each state of light body activation or ascension. So
I have to get that book.
I'm going to share that link with you. In fact, I will link it in this
that would
in
be
the caption.
wonderful
Yes.
for everyone.
Yeah, I'll
Yes.
do that. It's pretty fascinating. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's...
So how has ascension become such an important part of the process for you? You mentioned like coming from your twin flame, realizing that was necessary for the process of ascension.
Right.
So yeah.
I believe that I have always listened to that higher self of me, that voice that comes to you from very childhood. I have known that there is something higher that's there. So it was easier for me to go through it. For dietary, I know for sure, again in 2016 when everything was happening, one fine day I was just like, I threw up after having hot coffee. I used to drink coffee every single day once. In winter, maybe twice. But one day I just had coffee and I threw up. And I felt like, oh, maybe it's digestion problem or something. The next day, the same thing happened. The next day, the same thing happened. And it was like 3 or 4 consecutive days that the same thing happened. I was just throwing up after coffee. I had to stop drinking coffee. I wasn't even able to have iced coffee or anything. But now I am able to drink iced coffee, but I still cannot take coffee, black, hot coffee. My body would just not take that. My body doesn't take caffeine in any form. Like if I drink too much tea, that same thing would happen. My body now is really not doing well with alcohol. I can take very limited, but not regular basis, not every single day. I have to like really pace it once a month or something like that. Meat has gone down for me. Like I eat meat, but it is like very small amount of meat portion that I would eat. I would eat the rest more than the meat. And I'll try to have it like once a day instead of 2 or 3 times a day in my diet. There are certain things my body would not take anymore, like sugar. If I have like Coke or any soda, any drink, sugar is not going anymore. I cannot have sugar. I don't take it in my tea or coffee or any of those. That has completely stopped for me. And what else was there? There are a few things that I just can't, like cheese, I cannot take. Like there are few things that I have really hard time with digestion. I just cannot do that. So I figured those out and I kind of now took that off my diet completely. Some I would have socially in social gathering, but I would not like for my every single diet, I won't have meat. Those things I have to be very careful, very mindful about.
Yeah, I find that, so I have been doing the shift with my diet more kind of consciously. I've been trying really hard, but every now and again I do kind of slip up. And this weekend, I slipped up. I had some pizza on Sunday. But what I realized straight after eating the pizza is I feel awful straight away. You know, when you're about to buy that thing, it seems like the best idea. And I'm like, okay, I feel a little guilty doing this, but you know what? When I'm eating this, I'm going to drop the guilt and just give thanks for the fact that I get to enjoy this delicious meal and really enjoy it and put my heart into enjoying this pizza, you know? And then by the end of my meal, I'm like, oh my God, I just feel awful. And then my bathroom visits is even worse. So
Right, yes,
it's like your body is telling you it doesn't want these things.
it does. It
You
does.
know?
And if you know how to listen to it, it is so easy. It gets just so easy once you know that, oh, this just happened and I was feeling like not eating that, then why did I, like, there would be a voice that is so, you can hear it as if like, oh my God, it's just saying that, do not do that.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, this is a wonderful idea, just do it, just try it, even if you're scared,
Yeah.
just do it. You can feel that energy just rising up for you. And I have been doing that, and it has been so wonderful for me. The process, I know for people, they would say, oh, it is so painful, but I have enjoyed the pain too. I've enjoyed the shredding of all emotions that I was carrying, and it was required, it was needed to. The feeling awful, not drinking coffee or those, I have enjoyed those pain because those are part of your ascension, and for you to move to a different level, to different dimension. And once you can hear those, and once you know how to deal with those, you just have to sit with it and then sit through it and just like absorb it. And I have noticed that if I'm angry or if I am having different emotion level for different things, I would just be in that emotion, not just cut it off from me, but just be absorbed that. And if I'm angry and if I'm absorbing that, I feel like suddenly after like maybe a few seconds, it just like dissolves. And then there's this peace that you can feel, like I'm angry and I'm closing my eyes and I'm letting that anger go up till the bottom. And eventually when it goes down, I just feel this like the earth pulling it. And I feel this immense peace and this calmness just coming. And suddenly if that's your practice and you keep doing it mindfully, you just would have this wonderful tool. Whenever you're angry, whenever you're sad, just sit through it, let it pass through let your body be the conduit to those energy, those emotion, and let it from your head to your toe, just let it pass and let the earth take that energy and just give you this calmness and grounding energy. That has worked wonderfully for me.
I think that's a wonderful place for anybody to start, because I think coming into when I say spiritual journey, I don't mean needing to connect with the unseen per se, but just having a level of self-awareness. Being so, I mean, eventually you get to such a deep level of self-awareness, it becomes spiritual. You have no other word to use but spirituality. That's how it happened for me. I'm not spiritual. I don't believe in all this energy stuff, you know? And then you go deeper and deeper within yourself, and suddenly all these strange things start happening, and you start to see things from a much broader perspective until you have no other word to use but spirituality. Right.
Because you're living that spirituality. It's no longer
a concept,
religion, a concept, or something different than you. You are that. You are a spiritual being living or having human experience, right? So you are living that, you're being that.
Yeah. So I think for anybody wanting to start or not knowing where to start, a great place is to sit with the emotions, sit with the triggers, understand the triggers. I mean, even if you're not digging into understanding why every single trigger is there, allowing the triggers to be there because they're there. You know, the opposite of that is to continue squashing things down, burying them beneath the surface or under the rug for them to continue driving the seat that is the front of your conscious mind, directing all your experiences in the way that you respond to life. And the alternative is to take the driver's seat back. And the way that you do that is by allowing those uncomfortable experiences, getting to know them, allowing them, as you say, to move through your body. I find the same thing, that the minute I stop trying to make them go away or run from them or pretend they're not there, and I start to kind of acknowledge them and give them their voice, they soften.
Right.
They soften,
Right.
and then they bring
And
wisdom.
the other thing I say is, if somebody is violent towards you, is causing you physical pain, you don't have to stay with them. That's not experience. That's not listening to your body. But what you mean listening to your body is when someone's question is triggering some emotions for you. If somebody's saying, oh, you look good, but you may be thinking, oh, why is he saying that to me? Ask yourself why you are asking this question when you are getting a positive feedback. Ask what small questions are triggering different emotion and sit on it and reflect on it. Once you start doing that in everything, you will know that these are things that has affected me, and this is why I am answering or I am reacting in certain way for certain questions. Once you know why, then you start digging deeper and go, how I can heal myself. And once you ask that question, resources will be provided to you because you have asked the question, and ask and it is given.
Yes, absolutely. Mimi, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I'm so thrilled that I finally get to have this with somebody. And I guess it's the right time, everything in divine timing, right?
True.
That this comes up on my platform and in my life as well, because I don't know anybody else who's had the experience of a twin flame and who I can connect with on that. And also, yeah, there's many people talking about ascension, but do I have connection with those people? You know, it's mostly kind of at a distance happening around you.
Right. True.
But yeah.
And I also on Twin Flame, I also received a Twin Flame activation meditation this July, which I was really thrilled about. It just came to me driving, and I was just resting. I was trying to sleep, and this whole guided meditation came through me or to me, and I was like, did I just receive something like a whole activation meditation? And that was like, and I'm so excited to share that with everyone, which is like a unicorn.
Made this.
Sorry,
you created it.
Yes, it just that meditation kind of just channeled through me. It was very different experience that I had. I was trying to take a short nap in the car, and I was journeying through a unicorn, and it has a unicorn energy twin flame activation meditation. And I literally visualized that meditation. It was happening while I was I was trying to sleep, and I was like, did I just receive a channeled meditation? And it was, yes, I did. And it was so powerful. And I'm just so excited to share it with everyone.
Where can people find that? Where can people find you when you do eventually share it? Can you just...
They can, I'm already started to sharing it with people who are really looking for having this experience with their twin flame, or even soulmate, finding their soulmate, finding their twin flame. And they can directly reach me in my Facebook page under Mimi Das, or they can join my group in one soul being wisdom from Mother Earth. That's my Facebook group, and directly reach me via Facebook. That's the easiest way to reach me.
Okay, we'll put the links in the caption as well.
Yeah, and they can have time with me, and it's usually would take an hour. It's a guided meditation to walk you through. It has unicorn energy, and it's just like so beautiful. I can still see that face.
Since going through this process of awakening and expansion, all the magical things from your childhood and from the movies that you watch, suddenly everything is possible. I'm listening to you talk about unicorns, and I've done a unicorn meditation as well before. I didn't know it was a unicorn meditation, but up popped unicorns in the meditation, and I was like, unicorns? What is this now? And I see a lot of people talk about dragon energy and fairy energy and the fae, and it opens up this world of all the things that you question becoming possibilities. And I think that's what's the most exciting thing about the spiritual awakening journey, is that everything that was once impossible, suddenly those walls of perception and limitation, those limiting boundaries, those boxes, just start to break away, or the walls push back, and everything starts to become a possibility. Whether you believe it or not doesn't matter. Yeah, it's just that there is this possible thing. Yeah.
Right. The only thing I would say is stories, fiction or nonfiction, comes from something that has happened to that person. And they might add a lot of situation that was created, but there is a basic truth to it. Dragon, unicorn. In history, a lot of animals and species have been extinct, which we have not seen. So for us, those are all fictional characters. But for those who have lived in those times, those are as real as we now. So nothing is just fictional. There's always one small truth to it that gives that whole story, that brings that whole story up. So don't say that nothing is impossible, we say, right? So there's like nothing, that these are all real things. For us, they're extinct, and that doesn't, those are not there anymore for us. But for people who lived during those times are as much real as you and I talking in blood and flesh.
And I think also, even if not in the physical, some of these things are exist in other dimensional realities, right? At other frequencies that are outside of our five senses.
Right.
And I guess when you start to go deeper into yourself, you start to tap into those frequencies, and that's where the psychic abilities come from, right? So it's something that's available to everybody. It's an unexplored reality that is available to every single person, and something that they're probably exploring and have explored already at an unconscious level. So
True.
Yeah, I do think that those stories come from some kind of experience as well. And and I think what's also wonderful, just in as we close up, about breaking down the box walls, is that maybe for all the years of conditioning that we've lived, right, living under social conditions, and our minds kind of being geared toward whatever we've been raised to believe to be true or not true, right? When those walls start to break away and the possibilities of our experience of reality start to expand, life gets easier, life gets more interesting. There is a certain flow that is now allowed, because we start to connect with that deeper part of ourselves. We connect with universal energy. We connect with the earth and with nature. And as we do that, then we come more into that state of flow. And through that state of flow, all kinds of amazing experiences and things that we could never even imagine being possible in our reality. For example, I was just talking about wings 20 minutes ago, and that was like even saying it out loud is like, are you really talking about this? We're talking about twin flames right now. So I think wings and twin flames and fairies and it's all a part of a deeper sense of self. A deeper
True.
sense of
Yes.
self. Yeah.
And I would say I'm blessed to come from a country and from a religion that believes, which is a very ancient religion, and which believes in connecting with your higher self, with higher spirits, with the divine. They don't limit you to just certain people, to go to certain people for help. You can really meditate and reach to a certain level where no one has reached. So we are not limited. At least I believe that my religion has not limited me with my thinking. So I'm more open to the ideas and concepts of these, which really helps me with my spirituality as well. I don't say that I'm from a specific religion, but I do believe that it is really advanced and it is ancient enough to bring in everything, and which is open enough where an individual can go and connect to wherever they want to connect and be in their spirituality, in their religious belief.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Mimi. It was great connecting. And on that note, we will bring this wonderful conversation to a close. And thank you for everybody for joining today. I will see you guys possibly later this week because this session spilled over into this week. So possibly Thursday or Friday. We'll see about that. I'll post about it soon. And yes, if you're catching us on the replay on YouTube, please go ahead and give us a thumbs up and subscribe, and see you guys soon. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.